How to Recede in Business is a roller coaster of a start to the 7th season of Cheers. This is the first episode of the 7th season, directed by the wonderful James Burrows, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts, and it's an absolute joy. And we have some significant changes. I obviously have seen the show before, I know what happens next, but I definitely feel like it was a very unpredictable beginning. And one that's an absolute joy. That being said, the opening scene is a little bit flat. It's not the most interesting, but it does establish where we are. Sam comes in, he decides that now is the time to make another move on Rebecca. Evan Drake has been away long enough that in his opinion she should be starting to get over that, but not enough time has passed that she's going to change her opinion about him again. And he knocks on her door, and that's basically the intro. I feel like we needed something else there, maybe a witty remark from somebody. It wasn't the most interesting, but the rest of the episode, absolute perfection. After the intro, we cut immediately after that to Sam in Rebecca's office. Rebecca is looking at a Mercedes catalogue. Sam says that he's the Mercedes of guys, and she's clearly still emotional about Evan Drake and has decided to concentrate on her career, which is not a bad thing. But Sam is, of course, pressing for a date. And we have this beautifully written exchange where he said he came in to compliment her blouse and she said it's new, and they go back and forth. And it's a little bit ridiculous, but in a way that's absolute joy and clearly showing that Sam is very desperate. And Rebecca says to him, we're starting to become good friends. Now, why wreck that? Which I love. I love the fact that Rebecca is actually acknowledging that Sam can be a good friend to her. And eventually she agrees. She agrees to go on this date with Sam. Does she want the date with Sam? I feel like maybe she's definitely feeling very lonely. So I think maybe she wants the company more than the date. But also, I think she also realises Sam isn't going to quit. So they might as well. The next thing we see is Sam coming in dressed very smartly. He has flowers and candy for Rebecca. He's trying really hard. This is also, I think, one of the first times, maybe the first time, where I really felt that pain of Sam dating somebody else. I know Diane's been gone for an entire season now, which is kind of difficult to comprehend. But I feel like this is probably the most effort Sam has made with dating somebody. And it's difficult to see. I'm not saying that Diane should still be in it. I've talked about this at length, so I won't go on about it. But it still hurts. There's still part of me, and that part of me will always be there, that still thinks Sam and Diane should have been together forever. Even if part of me doesn't think that would have worked out, I still want it. I won't go on about it anymore. But the point there is that as soon as Sam came in, dressed to impress, it hurt a little bit. Cliff goes on, he goes on a Cliff story, and Carla tells him that he should write a book. Cliff's confused but happy that Carla has given him this compliment, that he has the ability to write a book, the interesting stories to write a book, and she then tells him to go into the back room and not return until he's written 60,000 words, and he does this, and he's kind of confused still, but part of him wants to write this book because somebody's suggested that maybe he has the stories to do this, even if that somebody is Carla, and he kind of sheepishly goes off to the back room, which I rather liked. Rebecca looks absolutely gorgeous, as always. She and Sam are about to go on their date, and then Greg Stone comes in. He's played by Brian Bedford, and this is Rebecca's new boss. And she's very happy about this. She thinks that this could be her new love interest. The entire bar groans when she says this. And when Mr. Stone comes back out of her office, he'd been using her phone, she thinks maybe she has a chance with him, bearing in mind she's going on a date with Sam, so her mind is clearly all over the place. And he tells her, I want to see you in my office in the morning. And Rebecca clearly thinks that he's going to ask her out, which says a lot about Rebecca. And she basically begs him to just tell her now whatever it is he wants to say to her in his office. And with some encouragement from Sam, he finally says this. Sam was obviously encouraging him so they could get on with it and get on with the date. But he says something that I think was so unpredictable. And it obviously changes the shape of, well, a lot of the future of the show and the way things are run, but I won't talk too much about that in this episode. But Mr. Stone says, that there has been a slight improvement in the bar, but, and I quote, "But the records show unequivocally that the bar did better under Sam's direction than yours. In view of this, I'm hereby appointing Sam the new manager, and I regret to say I'm forced to give you notice." That's a lot of information to take in a very short space of time. First, the bar did better under Sam, which is going to hurt. And then appointing Sam the new messenger, I can't speak today. I think my brain is still hung up on Diane. I have a little Funko Pop of Diane beside me. I keep this on my desk. And it probably does me more damage than good, to be perfectly honest, constantly reminding me of the agony. As I was saying, incorrectly, the second thing that would hurt is Sam being the new manager. And then the third thing, Rebecca has been giving her notice to leave. That's going to sting. And Rebecca's action, frozen, completely frozen to the spot. It is so awkward. The camera kind of cuts to a few different people in chairs and everybody's just kind of silent, staring, unsure of how to respond. And ultimately, we end this scene with Woody and Sam picking up Rebecca and carrying her out. And the next thing we see is Sam behind the bar, and he says to Carla, "Either managing a bar is getting a lot more complicated or I'm getting a lot dumber." To which Carla replies, "Having you back in charge really reminds me of old times. I mean real old times, even before the evil days when darkness fell over the earth." I think it was very obvious what it was she was talking about. And we cut to Norm and Frasier. Norm's not at his bar stool, which is always unnerving, but he's at a table with Frasier. And he says to Frasier, quite innocently, "She means when Diane was still here." And Frasier very dryly responds, "I know precisely what she means." And I have to say, I do love the fact that Diane is so frequently mentioned. And usually it's with bitterness and negativity. I can't remember if she's been mentioned in a positive way in the last season. But certainly she's mentioned, and that makes my heart sing, nevertheless. Mr. Stone then calls Sam, he disappears, Rebecca comes in looking, well, not her usual self, to put it mildly. And she ends up going into Sam's office and immediately cries into him because she knocked on the door. And she had to knock on the door of what was her own office. Which, yes, I think that's going to hurt quite a lot. But what I really admire about Rebecca here is that she said to Sam, it's not his fault. She could so easily be bitter towards Sam. It wouldn't be a fair bitterness, but it would be understandable because Sam has ostensibly taken her job. But she doesn't blame him. And I think that that's really admirable of her. And I think that was a really great thing for her to do, to say to Sam. And then she does say to Sam, and this is very Rebecca, "I know why it happened, because I'm a loser." And basically goes off on how much of a loser she is. And that's really Rebecca's entire outlook. And she finishes this little session by saying, I might just become a bag lady. And she wails, basically. And it's difficult to see because I love Rebecca. I feel like the only thing I can think of is that maybe this was too soon. On the one hand, I think it makes sense for Sam to be the manager again within a season. I feel like Sam not running the bar, not being in charge after so long, and obviously we know that the bar was no longer his because of Diane, because he basically threw the towel in after Diane left, tried to sail around the world, that didn't work. He basically lost everything because of Diane, which I don't like saying, but it's true. So for Sam to not be in charge for an entire season is difficult to handle. However, I don't think we had enough time to soften to Rebecca, to feel sorry for her that she's lost the bar or lost being the manager. I'm biased because I've loved Kirstie Alley since I was about 5 years old, so immediately I took to Rebecca. I don't know if I would have loved her as heavily and as quickly as I did if I had no desire to connect with the character because of my love of Kirstie Alley. And I do think maybe we could have done with another season or even half a season of breaking down the wall that Rebecca has in front of her, getting to know more about her as a person, feeling a stronger emotional connection with her before Stone then swoops in and takes everything away from her. So on the one hand, brilliant to have Sam back in charge. On the other, in terms of connecting with Rebecca and feeling the emotions that she's feeling, I think we could have done with a little bit longer. But maybe it's not fair for me to say that because I am completely biased. I don't know. I'd love to know what anybody else thinks on that. If you remember, or even if you've just watched this for the first time, do you feel sorry for Rebecca? Is it too soon? Have we had enough time to build up a proper connection with her? I'm not sure. I have gone off on a bit of a tangent. Back to the episode. Sam is then struggling to cope with the computer side of it. It's all very different because obviously the bar is owned by a corporation now. Things are done very differently to the way Sam used to do it. And Carla tries to tell him the story of John Henry to try and encourage Sam to not throw the towel in just because of a computer. Sam then tells Carla how that story ended, and Carla very quickly encourages Sam that actually his idea to encourage Mr. Stone to give Rebecca his job back is something that Carla thinks is a good idea as well. Carla encouraging Sam to get Rebecca her job back is a really interesting take. And I think it says a lot about Carla's maturity as well. At least briefly, Sam then comes back into the bar having spoken with Mr. Stone, and it turns out that initially Mr. Stone was completely against the idea of hiring Rebecca back, but Sam managed to get him to agree if Rebecca agreed to a long list of conditions. And he left a message for Rebecca, so Rebecca is aware that she's getting her job back, but he hasn't told her about the conditions yet. To be fair, probably not a conversation to have on an answer machine. And then Carla swings back to her old ways by encouraging Sam to look at this in a different way. She tells Sam that instead of telling Rebecca he couldn't manage, it's not the way things used to be run, he doesn't want to do this, he should tell Rebecca that he was so hurt by how heartbroken she was. He just couldn't cope with being the manager. He didn't want to see her in pain, so he demanded that Stone gave her her job back. And Sam likes this idea. This is a good way in Sam's mind to get into bed with Rebecca. And he asks Woody to make a reservation at Melville's, and then he kisses Carla, thank you. Not a passionate kiss, but it was really sweet. I rather enjoyed that a lot. And then we cut to dinner at Melville's, which reminded me of the times Sam's been up there with Diane. I'm very much focused on Diane in this episode, which is probably not the best. And honestly, it's a really lovely scene, very well executed, beautifully done. Rebecca says that Sam has been quite charming. He moves closer to her, and then she moves closer to him, and they are about to kiss. I think this is the second time when they've been so close to kissing. The first time was, of course, on Mr. Drake's boat. And just as they're about to kiss, Rebecca jumps up because Mr. Stone has come into Melville's. And he doesn't know who she is, which is, again, really going to hurt. Firing somebody and then not recognising them very soon after is not a great look for Mr. Stone, I have to say. And when she said, it's me, Rebecca, he remarked that he was a little surprised she agreed to the conditions, but you know, it is what it is. And Rebecca goes back to Sam and asks him what Mr. Stone meant. And Sam basically rattles off a list of conditions. She's going to take a pay cut. She has to go back to school. She has to share the office with Sam. She has to wait tables under Carla's supervision when the bar is busy. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's basically a huge step down for Rebecca. And the fact that she's also going to be in charge with Sam is also not exactly putting her back in the position where she was. But Rebecca initially seems okay with this. And she seems to make a move on Sam. And she starts to talk to him about her fantasy, and she whispers to him what she wants to do in her hot tub. And then she decides she can't tell Sam the rest, and she leaves and says goodbye to him, knowing full well that Sam can't follow after her because, well, she's wound him up and he can't move for a little bit. he ends up ordering a chocolate souffle to give him an excuse to sit there for a little bit while his blood cools down a bit. And Rebecca goes downstairs and tells Woody it will be a cold day in hell before I ever share an office with Sam. And she's about to leave, but Woody tells her that the dealership is called and her red Mercedes is ready for her. And Rebecca realises, I think in that moment she realises she has two options: leave and have nothing, or agree to the terms and have at least something. It would be easier for her to get back to where she was if she's at least on that rung on the ladder than if she goes to having absolutely nothing. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe she just wants the car. Who knows? But in that moment, she turns around after she's about to leave and takes the tray from Carla. Carla is with a customer. She's got a tray on her hand, and Rebecca walks up to a customer and is about to take their order. Carla's facial expression in that moment is brilliant. She's in the background, but she yeah, I rather enjoyed her reaction to that. She's clearly getting some satisfaction out of this. As I said at the beginning, it's a roller coaster of an episode. There are so many unpredictable things in this, so many brilliant scenes. I think the scene in Melville's was beautifully executed, so well done. And for the most part, I think Sam was really admirable in this, but also not necessarily, because clearly he's still doing a lot of things just to try and get with Rebecca. It's a brilliant episode, though. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. I definitely had Diane on the brain for quite a lot of it, but nevertheless, it's a really strong start to season 7 of Cheers, and I can't wait to rewatch the rest of this season.